closing and counting.
Welcome to this edition of DG Polls and the results that are coming in provisionally. We have just finished almost the final session. Lastly but not least, we'll have one more session at 2 p.m. that will be giving us exactly what is happening. But I'm joined by Benjamin Katana, the Treasury General of the National Unity Platform. He's with me this morning. Benjamin, how are you?
Well, I'm not fine.
What is it exactly?
Especially with what has been happening. Clearly, I want first of all to put the record straight that what is being announced and relayed here is not a reflection of the will of the people of Uganda as expressed through the voting that transpired the other day. We started here by the Electoral Commission giving figures and without showing us where they were coming from. When we challenged them, they started giving a breakdown. When we compared with the declaration forms that we have so far, because on account of the internet breakdown of blackout, we don't have all of them. But the ones we have, clearly there is a discrepancy between what they are presenting and what obtained at the polling station. Clearly indicating that these figures were preconceived even before people went to the votes, the fabrication, and of course, the NRM must have been embarrassed that after all they have taken us through, the people went ahead and defied their orders and voted for our candidate. That's why they have resorted now to fabricating results. But we are very confident that the people of Uganda heard the message, because throughout the campaign, the president has encouraged the people of Uganda that under Article 29 of the Constitution, they have a right to express themselves peacefully and lawfully and reject any attempt to subvert their will. And I believe that they will exercise that right and challenge the illegitimate and unlawful actions of the Electoral Commission.
What's the state of the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu right now?
Well, we may not be able to speak with certainty about what the situation is in now, because 2 days ago, the army and police besieged his home, denied us access, denied the media access. Last night we received a call from the members of the household that the security forces were breaking into the house. After that, their numbers went off. Nobody has been allowed to access the home, so we don't know if he's hurt, we don't know if he's in jail, we don't know if he has been taken away. We have seen a statement from police this morning denying, but we want to challenge the media to ask them why they cannot allow them to access the residence and speak to him and establish the state in which he is. But because they know they are up to mischief, they want to do it in darkness. They know they switched off internet, they have denied him access to media, they have denied media access to his home, they have denied the leadership of the party access to his home. And whatever they are doing is clearly outside the law, because his home is not a gazetted detention facility. He has not committed any crime. The only crime he has committed maybe is running against Museveni. But we challenge them, if they are speaking the truth, to allow the members of public, the leadership of the party, the media to access his home and establish the facts as they obtain.
Finally, you've made very strong assertions. What is the way forward for the National Unity Platform, plus your presidential candidate?
This is not a matter of National Unity Platform. It's a matter of the citizens of Uganda. It is their right to choose leaders. Now, if you take away their right, they have very many options under the laws of Uganda, and particularly we have been encouraging them to take advantage of the provisions of Article 29 of the Constitution to lawfully and peacefully protest against any attempts by the Electoral Commission to subvert their will. And we believe that they will exercise that right to assert their wishes on how they want to be governed.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. We appreciate your time this morning. You have heard it from the National Unity Platform, the Treasury General himself, Benjamin Katana, informing us of what has happened, that the DR forms they have vis-a-vis the results they are seeing, there is something that is differing between the two, but also he has gone ahead to make assertions on what is happening with Honorable Robert Ssentamu Kyagulanyi, and he says as late as last night, his house was broken into, and that's the last communication. The police has also made a statement claiming they do not not know anything about it. That is developing story that we need to keep our eye on to see exactly what has happened. But from us to you, we'll keep you bringing the updates to you, but also interviewing more people. We hand you over to the broadcast house.
Thank you very much, Timothy Nyangweso, for that particular conversation. And indeed, let's start from right there, Joan. Benjamin Katana, who's representing NUP at the National Tally Center, shares his observations, says that results at the Tally Center do not match what is on ground, and goes ahead to say and claim that the NRM is actually fabricating these results. The results that the EC chairperson is releasing are fabricated by the NRM, and says that they are not exactly what is on ground by their own mathematics. But of course, before we even get into the uncertainty of their presidential candidate, that is the new presidential candidate, perhaps let me hear what your perspective is on the claims made.
That provides spending limits, an effective enforcement mechanism to curb.
As you can see, it's a press conference at Sky's Hotel, Naguru. That is for the election observers. Let's take a listen and we'll be back.
Governing the utilization of technology in elections. C. Review the Constitution and election laws to strengthen the independence of the Electoral Commission by reconsidering the process for appointment of the members. To the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission should ensure the consistent application and respect of the Constitution and electoral laws without any interference. 2. The Electoral Commission should improve and observe election nomination procedures to address the pitfall of denomination of candidates duly nominated. The EC should fully finalize the nomination process before printing of ballot papers. 3. The EC should consider a waiver or reduction on the payment of nomination fees for women, youths, and candidates with disabilities to incentivize and enhance their participation in competitive seats. 4. The EC should disaggregate electoral information, including on disability status, to allow targeted provision of sign language, ramps, and accessibility adjustments. 5. The EC should facilitate early setup of the polling station through timely delivery of materials to allow voting to start on time in line with the 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. window. 6. The EC should conduct robust test runs of new technologies such as the BVV case before voting day to ensure their effective use on the election day. 7. The EC should compensate equal time loss in each polling station in line with international and regional best practice. 8. The EC should consider providing shades in the polling stations to cultivate favorable and inclusive voting environment for voting officials, voters, and other stakeholders. 9. The EC should invest in disaggregating election data based on the age, the gender, and disability status. Security agencies. Security agencies should operate within the law and mandate in a manner that is proportionate, impartial, and respectful of human rights to ensure that electoral security measures do not create an atmosphere of fear, curtail human rights, fundamental freedoms, and undermine political participation. 2. Security agencies should refrain from issuing directives on election-related issues that are not within their purview to do so. And we say so because one of the most controversial things as we came in was the issue of after voting, the law says still within 20 meters radius. But then the chief of the Ugandan Defense Force was the first person that was quoted as issuing that when you vote, you should leave, contrary to the law. And this coming from the very, the head of the military, created so much tension in the country. If probably that statement was issued by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, which have the authority to do so, citizens would have taken it differently. So security agencies should not make statements on election-related issues that are not within their purview to do that, so that citizens will not be apprehensive. Political parties are encouraged to promote internal party democracy, introduce quotas in all leadership positions, and equitable access to campaign resources, particularly for women, youth, and candidates from marginalized groups. This is an interim report presented to you today, but the final report, by tradition of AU-COMESA-IGAD, will be ready in a month's time. And that report will also be sent to the government of Uganda and a copy to the key stakeholders like Electoral Commission and the security operatives. I thank you all.
Thank you so much. So that was the report from the combined mission of AU, COMESA, and IGAD. And now we'll hear from the head of mission representing East Africa Community. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, good luck. Jonathan, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and head of combined mission AU, COMESA, IGAD. Excellencies, High Commissioners, representing East African Community member states, Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, East African Community observers, international observers, invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Upon the invitation by the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Uganda, the Secretary General of the East African Community, Honorable Veronica Nduva, deployed the East African Community Election Observation Mission to the 2026 general elections in the Republic of Uganda. Observing elections in the East African Community is in line with the fundamental principles of promoting good governance and democracy in the community, which are enshrined in the Treaty for the establishment of the East African Community and East African Principles for Election, Observation and Evaluation, adopted by the East African Community in 2012. This election observation mission is comprised of 58 observers under my leadership, and I'm deputized by Honorable Maina Karobia Mwangi, who is the chairperson of the Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution Committee of the East African Legislative Assembly. The members of the mission were drawn from the East African Legislative Assembly, East African Community Secretariat, national assemblies, government ministries, and electoral management bodies of the East African Community partner states, other than the Republic of Uganda, in compliance with East African principles on election observation that provide that no national of the country holding the election should be a member of the election observation mission. Ladies and gentlemen, prior to constituting the election observation mission, the East African Community conducted a pre-election assessment from 14th to 20th December 2025, whose objective was to evaluate the electoral environment and the preparedness of relevant institutions and stakeholders involved in the electoral process in 2026 elections in the Republic of Uganda. The mission engaged with key electoral stakeholders, including the Electoral Commission, the police, the judiciary, political parties and organizations, the Human Rights Commission, the media, civil society organizations, Uganda Law Society, and heads of other international observation missions. The mission also engaged with the incumbent President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is also the presidential candidate from the ruling party, National Resistance Movement, as well as the presidential candidate from the main opposition party, National Unity Platform, Honorable Kyagulanyi Sentamu Robert. The mission is grateful to all stakeholders who freely and willingly accepted to meet and interact with the East African Community Election Observers. Ladies and gentlemen, the East African Community Election Observation Mission deployed 12 teams spread across all regions of the country to observe processes, including the final phases of the campaigns, preparation of polling stations, opening, voting, counting, and tallying processes, and the other limited post-election activities. On polling day, the East African community observers were able to observe elections in 184 polling stations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present the preliminary findings of the Election Observation Mission, which are based on the interactions and engagements the East African Community Election Observation Mission had with the various stakeholders and observation mission on key election and election day activities. The East African Community Election Observation Mission made the following observations. The 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, as amended, and other relevant laws provided the legal framework on which this year's general elections were conducted. The mission noted that Uganda's legal framework offers a robust foundation for the conduct of democratic elections in line with international and regional commitments that Uganda has ratified, including the East African Community Treaty. The political context was characterized by heightened competition, with 8 presidential candidates running for presidency, including the at presidential, parliamentary, and all municipal.
With so many countries
Public interest in governance, broadening political space, and voter choice. The mission further noted that there were several petitions arising out of the political party primaries and several unsuccessful aspirants opting to run as independent candidates. Although these provided voters a wider spectrum of candidates to choose from, it points to internal weaknesses in intra-party, including ineffective dispute resolution mechanism. The electoral environment has been largely peaceful and conducive for the conduct of elections. Electoral campaigns were mostly calm and peaceful. The mission noted that Uganda has a legal and a regulatory framework on political party financing, whose objective is to enhance fairness and integrity of the political parties. However, the mission noted that the law does not provide for campaign financing to cater for campaign expenditure so as to ensure a level playing field during electoral process. The mission commends the effort by the Electoral Commission regarding preparation and management of the 2026 general elections and the systematic stakeholders' engagement throughout the electoral process, including briefing international observers on the preparedness and the overall conduct of the elections. The Electoral Commission published a comprehensive roadmap as early as August 2023, covering electoral activities, including demarcation of electoral areas, update and display of the voters' register, and the nomination of candidates. The mission notes that the National Voters Register had 21,681,491 registered voters, which reflects a roundable 70% increase from 18,103,603 in the 2021 general elections. The mission noted that 53% of the registered voters are female, which demonstrates commendable women participation in the country's electoral process. The mission noted some concerns raised with regard to the high number of candidates denominated by the Electoral Commission after previously being validly nominated, candidates declared unopposed, and appeals arising out of nominations and denominations process lodged before the courts a few days to the election day. There is need to streamline the procedures and timeline for these processes to minimize confusion and enhance credibility and public trust in the electoral process. The mission recognizes the active role played by civil society organizations in civic and voter education and election observation. The mission commends peace initiatives led by the Uganda Human Rights Commission and the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda, which culminated in the signing of a peace pledge towards peaceful, inclusive, and accountable electoral process. The mission noted that the law provides for equal coverage of candidates by state-owned media. Generally, media offered extensive coverage of the electoral process and were also essential in dissemination of voter information to encourage meaningful participation in the elections. The mission noted that although there was no female presidential candidate or disaggregated data on female candidates, youth, and persons with disability, political participation of women is promoted through district women representatives in parliament. Inclusivity is further enhanced in parliament through special interest groups elections, together with youth, workers, persons with disability, and UPDF. The mission noted that on 30th January 2026, the Uganda Communications Commission issued a directive suspending public internet access, which had a direct impact on the compilation and analysis of field reports from our observers. Regarding voting, counting, and tallying, on polling day, the mission observed the following. During opening, all polling stations visited opened late with an average delay of 3 hours due to late delivery of election materials, malfunction of biometric voter verification kits, and delayed setup of polling stations. These delays caused frustrations for voters at some polling stations, with some deciding to leave. Despite these delays, the mission observed that the environment was generally calm and peaceful, with noticeable presence of party and candidate agents. All the polling stations observed were accessible to persons with disabilities, demonstrating efforts toward inclusivity. Assistance was provided to voters who needed it, including those with visual impairments in line with the legal framework for election day procedures. All polling stations visited were in open areas, allowing for more transparency of the voting processes. However, some of the polling stations did not have shelter for polling officials, party agents, and voters. The observers noted that authorized stakeholders, such as party and candidate agents, had seamless access to the polling stations and performed their duties without difficulties. The presence of party agents and observers at polling stations demonstrated a vital principle of transparency in the electoral process. The presence of security personnel at all polling stations visited ensured peace and order. The conduct of security was observed to be professional, non-intrusive, and discreet. Identification of registered voters was conducted transparently and confirmed by party and candidate agents who had copies of the voters' registry at each polling station. Voting proceeded uninterrupted in all the polling stations visited throughout the day. The mission observed that most of the polling stations had queues with an average of 50 to 100 voters. An average of 5 polling officials were deployed in all polling stations visited. There was a commendable gender balance, with at least 50% women constituting the election personnel. The polling officials demonstrated professionalism and handled election duties with knowledge and understanding of the procedures, a reflection of adequate training by the Electoral Commission. Most polling stations closed an hour later than the prescribed time, 4 p.m., acting on the directive of Electoral Commission to compensate for the delays at opening. Voters still on the queue were allowed to vote. Counting was conducted transparently in the presence of party and candidate agents, observers, and voters who maintained the 20 meters radius as prescribed by law. There was a considerable number of invalid votes. At the polling stations observed, candidate agents received and signed declaration of results forms, which were posted outside polling stations. Then we have some recommendations. The East African Observer Mission makes the following recommendations. Political parties and organizations should strengthen their processes and dispute resolution mechanism and procedures to address the high number of independent candidates arising from the primaries. Legal reforms should be introduced to provide for campaign financing with a view of enhancing transparency in campaign financing and ensuring a level playing field during electoral process. The Electoral Commission should endeavor to publish disaggregated data indicating the number of female and youth candidates in each election to inform public policy and advocacy. The Electoral Commission should enhance voter education to minimize the number of invalid votes in future elections. The Electoral Commission should provide shelter for polling officers, party and candidate agents, and voters at polling stations, and make use of school buildings or other public buildings not in use during the election period. There is a need to ensure that public access to information through ICT, such as internet services, are available and accessible to all persons during the electoral process. Measures should be put in place to balance security concerns with the benefits of public access to internet services. The Electoral Commission needs to minimize cases of denomination of candidates by enhancing mechanisms for verification of requirements before nomination. The Electoral Commission should investigate the causes of the manufacture of biometric voter verification kits and seek to ensure that this does not affect use of technology in future electoral processes. Conclusion. The East African Election Observer Mission congratulates the people of the Republic of Uganda for exercising their right to choose their leaders during the 2026 general elections. Considering that the electoral process is still ongoing, the East African Community Election Observer Mission urges all stakeholders to continue to uphold peace and refrain from any action that could undermine the integrity of the process. The mission further urges any actors dissatisfied with the outcomes of the process to address their grievances through peaceful and means established by law. I thank you very much.